There are too many releases. I already went on this tangent in the first episode of this series, which you guys should check out if you haven't already, but basically there's so much music out there nowadays that not only is it hard enough to just keep up with everything in terms of listening to it, but actually reviewing it and covering it on my channel, it's literally impossible. So what I have to do is these gauntlet style videos where I just tackle a bunch of albums at once to get them not out of the way, because that sounds like I'm just dismissing them, and some of these are really great albums, and some of them, even if they're not, are worth talking about, but you know what I mean. I just want to get through them. I don't have time to do full reviews for them, especially because the past few weeks have been super busy, super loaded, so I'm just going to review like 10 or 11 albums right now, and let's just get right into it. Up first, I have Think Peace by Clarence Clarity. This guy's debut record, Know Now, back in 2015, was one of my favorites of that year, and is one of the most creative pop records I had heard of the decade, so naturally, I was super excited to hear his follow-up, and what he delivered on here is something that I think is even superior to Know Now. First of all, it's more concise. It's about 20 minutes shorter, and not that there was necessarily filler on Know Now. I think I liked pretty much all 20 songs on there. Maybe there was like 2 or 3 songs that were slightly weaker, but there was nothing on there that I wouldn't consider at least good. But anyways, you get what I mean. Just the fact that it's more condensed does allow for it to be all the best material instead of, you know, the best, and then some good tracks that don't quite level up. So it's just a lot more consistent quality-wise. And also, I feel like this is a more expansive project in terms of the sound. I feel with this project, Clarence really builds this vibrant, rich pop world. I mean, there's even at the end of, I think it's maybe Naysayer, or is it at the end of Vapid Fields? I don't know. At the end of one of the songs, there's this little clip of this woman saying, "Welcome to Clarence Land." And it feels like when you're listening to this album, you're entering Clarence Land, this own little world that Clarence has concocted, full of, again, rich, vibrant sounds, because the soundscape on this thing, he does so much to build it. First of all, on the end of a lot of these songs, there are these fantastic outros that really have nothing to do with the rest of the song, but again, just build up that soundscape. At the end of Fold'em, for example, you have the Silver Linings part, where I think that's what it's called, where or Silver Lake something, where it's kind of like this serene ambient outro. At the end of True Love, I think it is, you have that kind of video game 8-bit style outro that sounds really cool. At the end of Vapid Fields and Vapid, you have that gorgeous like string and harp thing going on. So he does a lot in terms of that. There's also moments where passages from earlier songs are reused, but they're not like completely copied. He changes them up a little bit, maybe does a little key change, maybe adds some extra harmonies or layers, and bringing them back. Like, he doesn't do it often, and he wouldn't do it just because he has nothing else to do. It's not like he's getting lazy. I mean, it's literally the same thing. He's not trying to hide it, and the guy is so creative, and he has songs that he literally left off this project like Rafters and 1985, so I'm sure it's not just laziness. He puts things like, he puts Adam and Evil at the end of Naysayer Magic Obeyer, and then he puts the beginning of Naysayer Magic Obeyer on the end of Same, and just little things like that. Like I said, also switching up the music when he does reuse it again, it just makes it feel like you're in this world, hearing those familiar elements. I don't know, it's just cool how he builds this whole thing up. Listening to it really is like an experience. I feel like I use that so much, and then every time I use that, I do the little quote things to make myself not sound pretentious, but hey, a lot of times artists are giving you these albums where it really is like you just close your eyes and you're off in another world. So, you know, it's a word that maybe I shouldn't be ashamed to use. Maybe I should. I don't know. You guys can just tell me if I should fuck off or not. As I implied with the consistency thing, basically every song on here I'd consider to be fantastic, except for maybe True Love. And it's not even a bad song. It's just, to me, it kind of feels a little too typical. It just feels like any old neon-drenched synth pop song. And I mean, it's pretty catchy. It has a nice chorus, and it's still a good song, don't get me wrong. But again, just compared to some of the more progressive and wild songs on here, maybe not even wild is the right word, but just otherworldly sounding, it just kind of pales in comparison, even though, again, I still do like it. And then CC Wave and 2016 are more so just intros and outros. They're just instrumental tracks. But again, I love them on here because I think they add to that world building I was talking about. But then every other song on here is just a futuristic pop jam that I can't get enough of for one reason or another. Adam and the Evil has this huge, epic, all-encompassing sounding guitar riff. I don't actually know if it's a guitar. It's probably just a synth that sounds like one, knowing Clarence. But either way, whatever it is, it sounds great, and the melody it plays is so just epic and slightly evil and haunting sounding, but also kind of triumphant at the same time. I don't know, that from the minute I heard it, as soon as I put this album on and then CC Wave transitioned into Adam and the Evil, and that huge, heavy first note came in, I was like, fuck, I'm in for something special, aren't I? Just sounded so cool, and it still does, you know, after listening to that song 30 odd times. It's probably one of my favorite tracks of the year. Not my favorite track on here, though, because that would have to go to Fold 'Em, which is just a mind-warping banger. It comes in with the Fold 'Em, do 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 do, and all these crazy sounds that I don't even want to begin to try to describe, playing that melody that I was just singing horribly. The instrumental on this one, you know, you have that passage where that melody that I was just singing that plays at the beginning plays again a little bit into the track, but this time the instrumental sounds screechier and heavier and has more feedback and harsh noise coming in, making it sound a lot more abrasive. I love that moment. This song just has a lot of weird moments. The hook on it is, you know, what if the skies are closing? What if we come too far? You know, that little part, especially from the 2:05-minute mark after the rap verse to the 3:05-minute mark, that whole section where you just have these overblown vocal harmonies, there's so many layers of instrumentation, just the key change on there, it just sounds so damn epic. That whole minute that's like 1 minute of musical perfection. I think that might be my favorite minute of music all year. Every time I listen to this album, although I'm enjoying pretty much everything else going on, I'm really just waiting to hear that 1 minute of song. It's just, or it's orgasmic the entire time. That entire minute, I could just have, if one of you guys wants to go out there and just loop that minute like for an hour, I'll gladly listen to that thing, because wow. And as I was saying, there is a rap verse on here too from, I think it's Shaddy, and yeah, I mean, he's not saying anything on here that I think is particularly like clever or witty in terms of wordplay or lyrics, but he just sounds so fierce and epic on the beat. I love the way he comes in. And he's like, you know, live the life of holy man. I live for sin, I fold it in. I live for sin, so pour the gin. Bitch, money's the motive, I'm focused. On the full focus, on it low, or whatever he's saying. He just sounds really good on the beat, adds to the song really well, especially because after he comes in with the my life's a joke, hocus pocus, and then the way it drops in to that 1 minute section that I was just raving about. Just the entire way the song progresses, there's so many individual sections that really feel like elements that, I don't know, it's just like a rap verse on here. Would that really work in the middle of the song? Doesn't feel like it would. In theory, it does on this thing. There's so much going on. As I mentioned even earlier, there's that ambient type outro. Just the entire thing. This song, it's going to be one of my favorite songs of the year. When it first came out, I said it was my favorite song of the year. I don't know about that, but it's in contention. You're going to see it near the top of the list, maybe even #1. You know, but we'll have to see around year-end season where it actually does end up. I love those synth arpeggios on Naysayer, Magico Bear, which also has one of my favorite hooks on here with the girl. You make me feel like you've been fucking everyone. You make me feel like I make you feel good. And then there's also, I love how it incorporates that synth line from the beginning of Rafters, which, you know, is a great song, but I think it was proper leaving it off this album, just in the sense that I don't know if it would have fit completely. Like, it would have fit, but I don't know how well it would have flowed with everything else. I guess it's just my opinion. Also, wouldn't have been upset if it's on here, because it is a fantastic song, and if you missed that because you only listened to the album, go listen to that single. It was a great one. AJ Crew on there delivers some great verses. And yeah, this is not supposed to be talking about Rafters though, but I'm just saying it samples part of that song on here, even though he didn't use it, so that was cool. And again, it transitions into Adam at the Evil at the end, which I thought worked really effectively. We Change is a fun song that feels so cartoonishly spooky. I feel like it could be a Halloween song if you change the lyrics to it, so coming out in October was definitely an appropriate time. I mean, especially the drop on this thing, the do, 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 which I like. I feel like it has a really cool pace to it. I can just imagine, you know, Clarence just there conducting this electronic orchestra of just crazy rhythms and sounds on that little bit. Love that song. I love on Next Best Thing, the texture of the synths on the verses of that song sounds really cool. I don't really know how to describe them. It kind of sounds like the synths are doing something like that, but in like a more, you know, they don't actually sound like that, but if the synths could do that, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying. They sound really cool. And then the song Same is, okay, that's not the last one I want to talk about. I'll talk about Law of Fives first then. Law of Fives is a song that when I first listened to this album, I thought it was maybe the lamest song on here. Honestly, it was the only one that didn't impress me, and I just wasn't feeling it that much. But the more I've listened, this has probably become my second or third favorite song on here. First of all, that chorus is so twisted and endearing and catchy all at the same time, and there's just so many different moods and emotions going through me when I hear it. But I kill people in my dreams. Oh man, like, it's just, there's something weirdly euphoric about it too, just singing along and screaming that chorus with him. And then the rest of the song also, it has this, like, you know, again, it kind of sounds endearing and impassioned, but there's something slightly off to it, you know, like, so it really is like you're kind of just hearing a psychopath, like a guy, a serial killer who fucking kills people in his dreams or in real life or whatever, trying to make a relatable song or something. And just those clashing of tones makes this thing feel so weird, and yet inspiring at the same time. I don't know, it's kind of crazy. I kind of like the little stuttered rhythm that the main synth keys have. It's just a really cool sounding song to me. But then going back to Same, this song to me, it sounds good. I think I prefer the original, but I mean, they're both very different. You can barely compare them. I mean, this was one of my favorite songs back in 2016 when this originally dropped as a single on that EP. But the reason I find this song so funny, just like completely outside of the music of it, is first of all, this song called Same was dropped on an EP called Same, which was just this same song 5 times in a row, just, you know. So if you listen to the same EP, it's just, you know, you get the same song 5 times in a row. But then this same song ends up on this album, but it's same question mark, because it's not actually the same song, but it also includes elements from other songs when it's on this album, making it the same as them. And it's just, I don't know, this song is like the most meta song in history, just based on the title and how it's been used, and I find that really funny. But on its own, I kind of like what he did in the verse, how he changed up the instrumentation to that really deep, liquid, groovy bass line. That sounded pretty cool. It's definitely a distinct flair from the original, which threw me off at first, but the more you listen to it in here, it starts to feel more natural, and I came to appreciate it. But then, like, he's just interpolating, as I said, Naysayer, Magical Bayer in here a lot, so you do kind of lose some of that flair of the original, but like the way he kind of switches back and forth between Same and Naysayer, Magical Bayer, it's kind of like a medley of the two songs. It does sound really cool. So as I'm sure you could tell, I love this album. It's going to be one of my favorites of 2018, and I give it a 9 out of 10. Up next is Drip Harder by Lil Baby and Gunna, which some people I've seen are calling this one of the worst albums of the year. I think maybe that's a bit of an overreaction. I mean, obviously opinions are opinions. If you think that, that's fine. It's just when I hear this, I really don't hear anything that's any better or any worse than just really average, mediocre, uninspired trap music. And I guess that could be boring for people, especially in like a Culture 2 situation where you have to hear that for an hour and a half in a row. But this is what, like 35 minutes, I think. It's just really forgettable, you know, excusable music in my opinion, except, you know, I'll tell you what's not fucking excusable. Isn't that fucking Lil Durk verse on White V Alone, where he has the line about like, I won't let her say no, or whatever it is. I'll put up the actual line right here, but absolutely fuck you, Lil Durk. Like, that's not even, there's nothing about that that is even remotely excusable. I don't know how you could defend that line. That's just clearly a, you know, a fuck consent line, so fuck you for putting that on here. That's the one part about this album that did piss me off. But anyways, I think everyone's already gotten mad at him for that, but you know, I had to put in my piece because again, fuck you, Lil Durk, for that. But yeah, that was a trashy bar, but the rest of this is just pretty whatever to me. In fact, I even did like, I think, 2 songs on here. Drip Harder, the single, is that what it's, no, Drip Too Hard. I think it has a really catchy chorus. The beat on there is kind of cool. I mean, I really don't know what else to say besides that. I kind of like Gunna and Lil Baby's flows, and their chemistry across this thing is one thing I can give them, is like, they sound kind of similar. You listen enough, it's easy to tell them apart, but they do sound kind of similar, but which I guess can be a bit trite and repetitive at times, but they do bounce off each other kind of well, especially on the other song that I like, Belly. What I really like about this song is kind of how their flows are kind of slow paced but still unrelenting at the same time, because they just punch in a bar at the end of every word, but it makes it sound like for the entire verse they just keep going and going with the I just kind of like the effect it creates over that production as well. I thought that was kind of cool, but other than that, I don't really think I liked anything else on here. I will say the Drake feature on the last song was kind of cool, very standard beat, but I don't know, Drake just sounded kind of mean, cold, and menacing over it. I didn't really care for the song after he finished rapping, but I will say that was fine. But the rest of this, oh, and I guess another compliment I can give it is I Am. That was a above average song, I'd say. I like the triumphant feel of the production on there, but everything else on here just kind of bored me. It's just 2 rappers who, for one thing, they kind of just sound like they're trying to do what Young Thug's doing, and I actually do like Gunna on features here or there, but a whole project of him is not something I really want. You know, he's great on No Time. I love his own single, Oh Okay. Like, I do appreciate appearances from him every now and then, but a whole project of him, I don't really know if he can carry that, and especially Lil Baby. Lil Baby just sounds like he's doing the same thing on every song, and that one song he has on here, I don't remember the name, but it's like, I wish you was my girlfriend. No, I thought you was just best friends, but it made you... I don't even know. He's singing about his best friend that he turned into his girlfriend or whatever. It's just randomly a weird emotional moment that doesn't work at all. He sounds horrible on the beat. He's completely offbeat most of the time. He barely has a cadence or a flow. That was probably the worst song on here besides the Lil Durk song, which actually wasn't even that bad of a song outside the Lil Durk line, but he just ruined it for me because fuck that. I've already said that. Anyways, this is just a standard trap release. If you haven't heard it, you know, you're getting pretty much what you expect when you hear standard trap music. When I tell you an album is a standard trap album, you can imagine what this thing sounds like already. So for me, this is just a I guess 4.5 out of 5. There's really nothing for me besides the Lil Durk verse for the 100th time for me to get mad about. So yeah, I just kind of will forget about this in the future. Next is Safe in the Hands of Love by Yves Tumor. This is a real gem of a record, one of the most original I've heard all year. I listened to it back early around when it came out, and I just didn't really take anything from it, so I kind of didn't return to it until I saw it was getting a lot of praise from people that I respect. So I went back to it, and I don't really know what I was thinking at first, because I mean, a lot of this is actually really easy to get into. Songs like Noid, Licking an Orchid, Lifetime, which by the way, that's a hell of a stretch of 3 songs that I'll talk about in a bit. But this whole thing, I'll say my one problem with it, just to get my one problem over with, because I mostly want to praise this thing, is that it feels not disjointed, but it just feels like a collection of songs more than an album. Stylistically, there's really nothing that kind of runs throughout this whole thing. I don't feel like there's much thematically or just stylistically, compositionally. I just don't feel like there's that much that kind of ties this thing together as a unit. I love listening to it front to back, you know what I mean? Like, I have no problem with that. It's just that, you know, albums that are stylistically all over the place like this can work together well. For one, you can make the tracks transition into each other smoothly, so it feels like a natural jump from world to world, like you're navigating through the artist's mind or something, or you're navigating through a bunch of different worlds, but, you know, on a coherent track. This kind of just feels like jumping, teleporting, randomly going around. And when I think about this album, it doesn't give me a unison feel. Like, when I think about individual songs, like, I'm like, oh yes, this makes me feel that. But, like, you know, an album like Year of the Snitch has a ton of songs that are really stylistically different, but when I think about that record as a whole, you know, I just get a general feeling from it. I don't really take that from this. I don't even know if you can call that a negative. I guess for me it kind of is, because when I think of this, I just don't feel as strongly about it. But, you know, it's a handful, I mean, it's a really good collection of songs, so that's not too big of a detractor for me. It's just the one thing that I wish this thing did better, whether the songs flowed into each other more, whether it was sequenced in a different way. I don't know, I just wish there was a little more that tied these songs together, but for what it is, it's still really great. I guess I can also say that Honesty doesn't really do it for me. That house-flavored groove that just kind of repeats for the whole thing with a few flourishes here or there just gets a bit stale for me after a while. It doesn't really engulf me or hypnotize me in the music. And I also think that it does not complement his vocals at all. I've seen some people who criticize this record. They don't like this guy's vocals. I think they actually sound fantastic on most of these songs. It's definitely very distinct, and it's not traditional in any type of way, but I think it sounds really cool and pairs well against most of these instrumentals. But against this one, I think they just kind of clash in a weird way that doesn't sound that great to me. But to get to the good stuff, there's Economy of Freedom, which is this really methodically paced, hypnotizing journey through this formless, ever-shifting landscape that has some of the coolest sound play I've heard in any music all year. I mean, just the noises on here, they sound so distinctive, and they kind of just penetrate your ears in a way that's just so satisfying sounding. And the song has just enough of a form that this thing doesn't really lose you. Like, when you think back to this thing, you are able to remember it in a cohesive way. There's a lot of distinctive elements. It doesn't get lost on you like that. Like, sometimes a song can be too formless, in my opinion, where you just can't really take anything from it. You definitely can grasp onto this. In fact, it kind of grabs you and pulls you through itself. I don't even know, but it's a fantastic moment on here. Noid, I think this has to be my favorite song, just based on how, first of all, the drums on this entire record are awesome, but especially on that 3-song stretch I was mentioning earlier, Noid, Licking an Orchid, and Lifetime. The drums on these 3 songs, like, they just, something about the way they're recorded, I guess, or mixed, or just produced, they sound immaculate. They just sound like, I don't even understand. I didn't know that you could record drums in a way where they sounded this far above what you're used to hearing. Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. Like, I'm genuinely curious the process in which these drums were recorded. Like, they just sound like they get inside of my ear and are kind of just popping in these really crisp, succinct, catchy, just inspiring rhythms. And, like, I can't even come up with the words to describe how they sound. You really just have to hear it. But, man, the drums on these songs are fantastic. And on Noid, which has this really nice kind of vintage flared instrumental with his, as I said, distinctive voice, coming over with some really catchy lyrics. This is definitely the catchiest song on here. Like, there's definitely a strange quality to it. It does feel very one of a kind, but in a way that's accessible, and probably because I don't think you can listen to this thing without singing along to the Sister, Mother, Brother, Father, have you looked outside? I'm scared for my life. Like, this entire thing is super catchy and kind of anthemic in a way that's also kind of dark. I mean, the song kind of sounds like he's singing about kind of a post-apocalyptic scenario, but I think it's actually kind of referring more to that in like a mental health type of way, given how he's talking about like PTSD and depression on the chorus. I also like on the chorus how that deeper, woozier, darker synth kind of comes in and underscores the entire thing. That does put you in that darker mind state again. I'm pretty sure this song is about mental health in that way, in an effective manner. Licking an Orchid is the other song that's close up there for me for favorite on here. I mean, the guitar on this one, it's just something about the way it's recorded, produced, or mixed just makes it sound so damn good. Like, this whole thing is like, I think it's, you know how ASMR, like, I'm not saying you're into ASMR, but for people who like ASMR, what that's supposed to do, just supposed to sound really satisfying. A lot of this album hits the same note. Like, it just melts its way into my ears and like massages my brain in just the most pleasuring way possible. Like, I want a documentary on this. I want to see how this guy produced and recorded and just made this entire thing, because it sounds so damn good. Like, it has this kind of, the guitar on here, it's kind of faded a bit in the background, but it kind of still surrounds you in a way, but not a way that feels all encompassing. It's like you're Saturn and the guitar is like the ring just circling around you, and I'm just struggling to put this into words, but it almost goes past that in a way. And again, his singing on here is really catchy. It goes along perfectly with the instrumental. I love the guest singer on here too, James K, and what they contribute. It's just another fantastic song. Lifetime maybe has the singular best sounding drums on the entire project. I also like how this song just kind of builds layer on top of layer to the point where at the end you just have this like wave of sound just kind of passing through you. It just builds up all around you. It's twirling with you. It just sounds so epic with him singing once again with the Scorpion can't hold me back. The entire thing, just again a fantastic composition. I like how it builds. It's kind of high the whole time, but it just feels like you just keep adding on in terms of emotional weight, in terms of actual weight of what's on the song, in terms of the meat on there. I don't know. Great stuff. Hope and Suffering is a more ambient inspired piece. You have this really dour, tragic, dark, depressing, sad sounding violin that kind of carries through this whole thing, while these walls of kind of harsh noise and feedback kind of scrape over it. It feels like someone who's wading through these really harsh waters, just trying to escape their own mind in a sense. I don't know, there's a lot of really cool imagery that will play through your head while you're listening to this song. There's also some weird spoken parts in the beginning that makes it feel even more ominous and creepy. The song Recognizing the Enemy has more great sounding acoustic guitars and strings, and the lyrics on this one I think are actually the most interesting part of it to me. You know, when he's saying, "You look so different, you look like somebody else, it hurts so much knowing that I couldn't help." And I'm wondering if on this song he is talking about someone that he loves and cares for, that he just doesn't see them for who they were. It's like maybe they're not the same person that he fell in love with, or I don't know if he's just talking to himself. He doesn't like whatever's happening in life. Like, he doesn't like what he's become. He doesn't like what his mental health has done to him, you know? Just looking at himself, he's like, who are you? I mean, and there is even a part where he's saying, I look so different, I look so different. So I think that this could be about his mental health. And I want to take back what I said at the start of this review, where I said there's nothing that, when I was talking about how this album doesn't feel like there's anything that ties it together, and I said thematically, when I said thematically, I was kind of, first of all, just kind of listing off adjectives, and when I said thematically, I more so meant, I think, you know, I don't even know what I meant to say, but I didn't actually mean lyrically, because if there's one thing that this album does have as a whole, the whole thing kind of does feel like a dissection on mental health, and just kind of, you know, Buffalo Staple, I think, said it best. You look at the cover of this album and you kind of see that creature, but he's kind of faded. You can't see it properly. I forget what he was referring to when he said that, but to me, I kind of look at that cover and you see this beast that you can barely see and you can't really make it out. To me, that would be kind of the representation of mental health. It's this beast that you're dealing with, but you don't always fully know what it is. And that's definitely a theme that I feel carries throughout a lot of this project and is done really effectively. Like, the lyrics on this thing are definitely worth paying attention to. And then there's the final song, Let the Lioness in You Flow Freely. And this song, when it first came on, like, this whole thing, as I said, kind of jumps around a bit stylistically. But none of that could have prepared me for what happens on this final song, how it just crashes in and just pummels you with these huge walls of really harsh guitars, these really fast drum rhythms that come into and then the drums. I mean, this track is just an explosion, weirdly catchy at the same time. Like I said, it's harsh, it's pummeling, but in the best way possible. Sounds incredible. It's a fiery banger to end the album off. And yeah, this album is a real grower. Not only, like how I said, how I didn't care for it at first, but even when I did start to like it, at first I was just kind of liking a few songs, but the more I listened to them, not only did the songs that I already liked grow to be incredible to me and not just kind of good, but the rest of them kind of gained on me as well. So really, besides Honesty, and I guess the second last song, I forget the name of it, isn't that memorable, but it's still good. But I mean, this entire thing is a great project, another highlight of the year, and an 8.5 out of 10 for me. Quavo Huncho by Quavo. This album sounds exactly like you think it does. If you haven't heard this album, you know what it sounds like. Did you hear Culture 2? Did you hear Culture 1? Have you heard the Migos for the past 6 or 7 years? You know exactly what you're getting on this one, and I'm glad that more people are finally sick of it, because, I mean, this thing is an hour and 6 minutes, not as long as Culture 2, but it's just an excessive amount of songs that all practically sound the exact same in terms of formula, structure, composition, lyrics, substance, flows. Just because you change up the melody and, you know, instruments, not even instrument, it's all synth work, but just different sounding synth in the production, doesn't mean like it doesn't always feel like the exact same song over and over and over for 19 tracks. There's 2 songs on here that feel like they're doing anything slightly different. There's like the weird dance hall one, I think it's Swing it's called, that's like 6 minutes long. Sounds god awful. I mean, like the 2 risks he took on here were like the worst songs on there. I think Swing was one, and then there's the one with Madonna and Cardi B, Champagne Rosie. Kind of has a weirder instrumental. It's not even weird, it's just like you wouldn't expect Quavo to be rapping on it. And Madonna's hook, I don't know, like, I'm not a Madonna guy. Is this a sample? Is this an original thing from her? Either way, her vocals sound so faded and buried in the mix. She just sounds really off. It's really bizarre, and it sounds horrible once again. But so yeah, the 2 songs on here that aren't completely derivative of everything else are the 2 worst anyways. So this really is just a completely inessential project. You know exactly what you're getting. Even on like the first song here, like the flute sample on that sounds atrocious. Like it's not even good for the formula it's trying to recycle. And that's the whole thing on here. I mean, Quavo is the least interesting Migo in terms of flow and commanding presence on the mic. And even the other 2 Migos, like one thing I never get about the Migos love, and especially how you can listen to them a lot, is they always carry the same tone with their voice. They're like the least expressive people. They're always just on a very low mid. They're never coming up like kind of going a bit quieter, or maybe coming out like a little more fiery, or coming out a little more soft and vulnerable. They're always at the same level. That goes, I got in my pocket, I got all these diamonds, I got all these watches, I got all these bitches, and they gotta be flocking. I don't give a fuck about you or your mugger. You know what you're getting into. Lambos and Lambos and Lambos and Versace. It's always the same shit, and they've been doing it forever. And when you have to listen to that on Culture 2 for 97 minutes or whatever it was, on Culture 1 even for me, which I didn't get the hype for 60 minutes, on this for 66 minutes, it's horrible enough listening to that for one song. I really just think that these guys are, like, they're average, but painfully average in a way that really exposes themselves when you listen to them for a full project. They're cool on a feature verse here or there. I mean, when Offset worked with 21 Savage for that, and I didn't have to hear Offset all the way through, and it was actually broken up a bit, that was nice. When he comes through on a song like Paddock Water, that's cool. But on their own, like, these guys are so one-dimensional, one note, and it's painful. And Quavo does that here on Quavo Huncho. So this is a 3 out of 10 for me. Really inessential project. Probably one of the worst hip-hop releases of the year. And yeah, I'm glad that other people are recognizing this, and even the Migos fans seem to be kind of dismissing this as trash. Maybe they're finally getting fed up with this and are actually sending the message that they'd like a new sound, which is nice. The next project I'm going to talk about is Hell or High Water by City Morgue, aka Zilla Kami and Sauce Moolah. And this is a project that I was personally highly anticipating because the singles that these guys had been dropping, I first heard them when I did my video reacting to trap metal, which, by the way, is probably the only video on this channel that I am ashamed of, in a sense. And I'll tell you why. It's because when I went into that video, it's because I had heard of this new thing called trap metal, and immediately my reaction was, oh, this has to be hilariously bad. So I was pretty much going into that video with the mindset that I'm gonna hate this music, and I think that showed. The whole time I was just, even if the song was decent or even half good, I would just completely shit on it. I was just kind of blindly hating on everything. I'll probably take it down someday. Not a fan of how I was, my entire attitude in that thing. But that being said, that was my first exposure to Zilla Kami. I reacted to a song of his or two in there, and even though in the video I probably shit on it, I ended up going back to it after because something about it alerted me, and the guy became an artist that I would return to frequently. I mean, his sound, to me, he sounds like if Heath Ledger's Joker from The Dark Knight made music. He just sounds like this twisted, insane, off his rockers guy who is just absolutely insane, and he's convincingly dark too. He's not, to me, he's not corny. If you see this guy as corny, then you're just not gonna like the music at all, because I think a lot of this depends on the image and just the lifestyle it portrays and actually buying into that, and not only buying into it but enjoying it. And I just like to put on this guy's music and go insane to it, Sometimes we all just need to go a little bit insane, and that's kind of the appeal to this to me. When I listen to a song like Shinner's 13 or 33rd Black Glass, the two main singles that grab me from this guy, and I hear Zilla Kami's signature evil laugh that he does at the start of these songs, I really feel like I'm listening to the music of a psychopath. And if that's something that sounds interesting to you, I think that's maybe a very particular thing, but he's just so convincingly dark with his music and with his growling voice. I mean, to me, like, when 6ix9ine makes his music, he just sounds like an angry chihuahua who I could probably beat the shit out of if I wanted to, and he's not scary at all. Like, Zilla Kami is legitimately scary in the best way possible. When I hear him on, if you know the song Are You Ready Kids, with his little yeah ad-libs, which he actually does on a few songs on here. I think maybe Aw Shit he does that, but he kind of like has this really steady yeah, like I just start going, oh, I get this evil grin on my face. That's pretty much me listening to all his music, and I just like to go a little bit crazy. You have these huge walls of guitar on here. I mean, you have a song like Grave Hop, just these monstrous walls of guitar coming in, and we don't take shit, you little fuckface, Grave Hop, and just these wild vocals from Zilla Kami. I think his vocals actually sound really good. They're definitely a bit metal influence. Like, I see where the metal label comes from, even if maybe the trap metal label even Zilla Kami himself says that it's not accurate and people shouldn't use it. But yeah, just the entire aesthetic to these guys' music I think is great, and they have so many lyrics in it that back them up. And then just a side note, like, the music videos don't affect how I feel it, but you watch the music videos, you see that these guys are really about that life. And I mean, I love in Ken Park when Sauce Mula saying, like, only guy in my hood with a rocket launcher, I'll melt your face like lasagna. I mean, first of all, that's kind of hilarious, just that line there. But I mean, these guys really do have a rocket launcher, and it's so cartoonish, but it's also really fucked up, and there's just something that's weirdly appealing about that to me. And this thing is like chock full of bangers with really catchy choruses. I mean, on Nuka-Cola, it's like, me, I like my semi-big, me, I like my 30 clip, me, I never ever miss, 'cause ignorance is elegant. Like, that's super catchy to me. On 33rd Black Glass, when he's just belting it out with these more sung vocals, chopping down war-torn, let them all off, all I want till you get it called off. And just the way Zilla says a lot of things with his roaring voice a lot of the times just sounds so dark and freaky and cool to me. Like on 33rd Black Glass, like, he kind of has that scream moment where he's like, before he goes came to the conclusion that you're hiding from shit, where he's a little bit more toned down actually. He kind of has that moment where he's been rapping more up tempo for a bit, and he kind of just unleashes this scream of yeah, and every time I hear it, I kind of just do this motion with my arms because I'm kind of buying into the bit, pretending I'm this insane guy instead. This is what I would consider not necessarily guilty pleasure music, because first of all, I never feel guilty about liking something. Second of all, I legitimately think that, like, for this style of music, it's executed really well. Like, I'm not saying that, oh, this is bad, but I personally like it. Like, I genuinely do think this is good, but it's guilty pleasure in the sense that I like this for a very particular reason that's particular to me that I don't know if other people can relate to, but just kind of inhabiting this insane mind state and going nuts to it. I don't know, and I swear I'm not a psychopath. I swear this isn't me living out some weird psychopathic tendencies. It's just somewhere, it's like when you watch The Dark Knight, you have fun watching the Joker be a psychopath. When you watch Silence of the Lambs, you have fun watching Hannibal Lecter be a psychopath, and this is kind of like the musical equivalent of that to me. And I also love how dirty, grungy, and almost trashy, but in a good way that this sound, how ugly and just gross the entire aesthetic of it is. Like, it's kind of like watching, you know, some of the darker scenes from Breaking Bad or Requiem for a Dream or Train Spotting. It kind of really puts you in that dirty, grimy lifestyle of, you know, criminals, drug addicts, all that stuff. Again, really dark stuff, and it's not going to appeal to everyone, but there's a reason that we like shows like Breaking Bad and movies like Train Spotting and Requiem for a Dream. It's because there's something like just kind of, you know, putting yourself in that lifestyle for a bit and just, you know, not actually living it, but just, I don't know, just kind of experiencing it in a, you know, safer environment. There's something about that undeniably our society, or at least people, some of us, find appealing, or else those things wouldn't be successful. And this thing puts you in there so successfully to me that I just can't deny it. And the one song on here that I'm probably not the biggest fan of is Lamborghini Getaway, just because I feel like Ronnie J's beat does not fit these guys' style at all. Like when I hear Sauce Moolah come in over this production, it sounds like he was rapping over another beat and then they just randomly threw this one on instead. It just doesn't sound natural. It's not bad. I don't skip it when I'm listening to the entire thing. And when it's on, you know, I guess it's fine, but it's definitely the only song on here that I wouldn't, you know, actually return to, because everything else on here I've been playing like crazy. This thing has been out for what, 2 days now, and I've probably have like 200 scrabbles of this thing on Last FM. It's definitely really replayable. I kind of like what they have on here, where a lot of these songs are barely over 2 minutes long, but they're short to the point where they feel fulfilling, and they definitely feel like fully realized songs, but also they do end that quickly that I just want to replay them, but not in a way like, oh, I wish this was longer. It's like, wow, I'm happy with that length, but let me just replay. The replay value on this thing is insane. Going into this review, I wanted to talk about specifics a lot more, but I've been rambling on about this thing for so long that I'll kind of cut some of that and just talk about a few specifics that I kind of wanted to get into on So What. I really like the really up-tempo, propulsive energy this song has. You know, this whole thing has a high energy, but this thing is so high tempo too that it kind of just gets me amped up even more. Like I'm just bouncing really fast in my seat when I'm listening to it. It just carries a great energy, as I already said. And I also think that, like, I generally think that Zilla Kami and Sauce Moolah are pretty good, like, rappers too, you know, when they're delivering more straightforward rap verses, and they have some pretty, like, cutting bars sometimes that, like, really strike you and punch out at you. Like, I like on this song when he's saying, serving G's out the window like McDonald's serving fiends. Get filleted like a fish fillet, machete to your face. Just a lot of really punchy, sticky bars. Like, this doesn't feel half-assed in terms of writing either. It really feels like they sat down and write some cutthroat stuff. Like, I mean, the content, like, you know what you're getting into after the first song. It's not like they really divvy that much up, but the way they say it, it is pretty fun, engaging. Once again, plays into this whole, you know, mood and atmosphere that I like from this thing. The only two features on here are from, I think his name is Scary Boy Rory or something like that, but he's on Ken Park and Grave Hop, two of the hardest sounding songs on here. And the funny thing is, he's a very more traditional sounding, very low key trap rapper, I think. Like, he's like, it's all bitch, all smoking out the like, that's not his lyrics, but that's kind of his flow and what he sounds like. But it's just kind of funny hearing him contrasted against Zilla and Sauce's very fiery, rageous, angry sounding tone. Then he's kind of more chill there with the ha 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 and a cash out like that. But he sounds kind of mean and calculated, not calculated, but he just kind of sounds cold and mean in a way that, like, it fits on there. Like his more, you know, reserved delivery. I don't know. I think it's kind of a cool contrast, and it works surprisingly well in there. So I did appreciate his features, especially the ha 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 ha, bring the cash out like that. That just sounds so cool for whatever reason. The hooks on this thing are also super strong all the way through. Zilla is a really good hook guy. I mean, like, they write really good, catchy, sticky hooks that are just, again, really, I mean, they're so energetic that they're all pretty anthemic. Like, I actually had friends who could enjoy this stuff. I'd definitely love to play this and just go crazy to it, singing along with it. I mean, especially on the 3 singles, they all have really strong hooks. You know, chopping down war torn, let them all off. I think I already sung that one earlier. And then 1 for the gang, 2 for the fame, 3 for the name, 4 to the put a nail in the coffin, lay him down for a minute. I get really excessive in my, especially my ranty type reviews. I can't help but sing everything. And I don't know if that's a good thing or if it's a bad thing, but I really do go on with singing this shit. Man, even with Skatehead, how does that chorus go? Who cares who you is if you scared, you're scared. Or who cares who you is if you scared, you're scared. So let the bodies to the crib. Like, who cares, who's gonna let that motherfucker say your prayers? Cool in the new breeze, I got my new beam, a little bitch, you the school shooter, I'm a school teacher. Yeah, I really just go on and on with this shit, don't I? But yeah, it's good shit. And Zilla on Skatehead, that's one of his most fiery verses where he just has so many moments. And like, that's one of his verses where I just get most, I guess, insane to a fuck that. We was in the trenches with the kids and getting fucked up with the kids. Got another 666. Hey, fuck that. Fuck the opposition. Fuck your kids. Fuck your gang and fuck your friends and all that shit, you people. And I got soldiers who doing hold-ups and sending souls. Asking the begin the King Cole Ramon. Oh, yeah. So this thing, I've been going on. Probably just knowing you. I've been recording for a long time, and I'm only through 5 albums, and I don't feel like I've been talking that long about them. But I think I might be. I think this video might be long as fuck, and I apologize. But yeah, as you can see, this thing is really doing it for me. A really solid tape. As I said, 14 of these 15 songs I think are really good, and I will be coming back to as just these really fun, psychotic, insane, wild bangers. I think this tape does a great job of executing its sound. I think it does a great job with hooks. I think the verses are really good. I think these guys have awesome performances on the mic. I think that, as I said, it does a really good job of capturing this twisted, grimy lifestyle, and the entire thing just works for me. I give it an 8 out of 10. I love this thing, honestly, and I'm having a ton of fun with it. Okay, so I will try to be more succinct with the remaining reviews in here, and if this video is like an hour long, then I'm sorry that it turned out this way. Hopefully it only ends up being like 45 minutes at the max, which would still be excessive, and I'm just making it worse by rambling on about how long the video is in the first place. So let's just go. Mudboy, Sheck Wes. This was an album that I wouldn't have ever had on my radar if it weren't for the fact that Mo Bamba is the banger of the year alert. Excuse me, that song right there, like, in all seriousness, I fucking love that song. Like, to me, that is everything that radio rap should be. I mean, it's super anthemic. It's one of the most easily sing-alongable songs that I've really heard in pretty much just modern rap. Because if you've ever been in a crowd when this song is playing, it's honestly unlike anything I've ever seen. You know, there are a lot of songs that can make a crowd go crazy. I don't think I've ever seen a crowd go as crazy as when Mo Bamba is played, and I love it because I can get really hyped to this song, so the fact that other people share that with me, yeah, this is a fun-ass song, especially when you're with other people. I mean, Sheck Wes's really drony flow on here is so infectious, and the fact that it's bassy and just really gravelly and really off-kilter, it sounds kind of strange, but it's also a bit hypnotic at the same time, which is why I, like, when this thing was just a single, I literally would listen to it, like, just 6-7 times in a row, just keep playing it back to back, because it's hypnotic, but also up-tempo at the same time, and it comes in, and for some reason, somehow you get hype enough just based off that little do synth line and Sheck's flow, but then you especially get hyped when the bass comes in, and then pretty much just all hell breaks loose, and you may as well just, you know, go crazy. This is the easiest song to go crazy to, and I have plenty of time, and if you're ever around me when this song comes out, you better watch out, because it's crazy. And the most hype song, the most hype part of this song has to be when he kind of fades off in that little part in his verse, but then he comes back with the fuck, shit, bitch, yes, Sheck Wes said I'm getting really rich. Like, this guy can have a lot of really hype energy when he wants to. When he wants to go there, he can, and it actually is kind of cool how he plays with those dynamics in his verse to kind of have these peaks of more hype moments. So, I mean, I think this guy, with this song, knew how to concoct and construct a really great banger, and I do love this song a hell of a lot, and I don't even care that it came out in 2017, because I only heard it this year, and so did the rest of the world, so I'm gonna put this on my year-end song list. But yeah, so I was hoping for more songs like this, or at least more music that was, you know, had this little off-kilter feel, while still being really catchy, fun trap music. And you do get that on here. You have songs like Chippy Chippy, which has this kind of weird alien-like production that's kind of just warping in and out. Yeah, I mean, when I listen to this, I feel like I'm about to get abducted or something. And then Sheck coming through with this really weird, low-key singing delivery. I've been hot in a minute. I got so many bitches. Get hot like Alibaba. Chippy Chippy. It's a really kind of strange trap banger, but again, super catchy, really effective. I appreciate it. You know, again, the weirdness and the uniqueness of it as well. Same goes for Gmail and Mindfucker, very similar to what I just said about Chippy Chippy, kind of this weird low-key singing, alien-like production. Gmail, a lot more hype. I live a mud boy lifestyle. I also like the part on that song where he's kind of weirdly explaining why he says the word bitch so much. It's really hilarious. Also, speaking of which, his bitch ad-lib, it's filled with so much energy, it's crazy, so that's always fun when he uses it. Yeah, and then Live Sheck Wes, Die Sheck Wes. Like I was saying, this guy can get really hyped when he wants to, and this song is no better example. He comes in whispering, Live Sheck Wes, bitch, I'm dying Sheck Wes. Then he starts singing a little more high, Live Sheck Wes, bitch, I'm dying Sheck Wes. Repeats that a bit, and then he starts screaming it at the top of his lungs, Live Sheck Wes, bitch, I'm dying Sheck Wes. And with that kind of weird little 8-bit melody going on in the instrumental, and then the bass which ratchets up, this thing is an all-out banger. And I think, you know, it's pretty simplistic in its lyrics. I mean, for like the first half of the song, he's literally just saying, Live Sheck Wes, bitch, I'm dying Sheck Wes, over and over. But I mean, it works as a banger. It's something really easy. I mean, you listen to this once, you basically already know the lyrics. You know, when he does do the verse, it is pretty fun too. You know, Sheck Wes always been the man. Yeah, I mean, fun verse, easily catchy chorus, easy banger. And then, was there anything else on here I cared for? Fuck Everybody, I guess. It's kind of easy. I mean, I'm actually not that big of a fan of it, but like if it came on, it has a catchy enough chorus. Yeah, fuck everybody. Yeah, fuck everybody. Like, that part is kind of cool. And I do love the part at the end where that weird guitar kind of comes in, closes out the song kind of out of nowhere. It does sound really cool. But this is more of an okay song. But then, like, there's a lot of songs on here that kind of suck. And it's mostly songs like Wanted, maybe not Wanted, but Never Lost, WESPN, Burn Slow, Danimals, and it just exposes all of his weakness. The production on all those songs is really basic and boring, and they're not like kind of hypnotic in any way. And he's also singing in a very low tone where it really exposes just how raspy and bad his voice sounds, raspy and bad his voice sounds. And the production, as I said, is so quiet and generic and really bland that it kind of doesn't enhance it in any way. You know, on Mo Bamba, obviously his singing isn't good, but the entire vibe of the song, you know, the off-kilter singing works. But when he's just on those other songs like WESPN, he just sounds bad. Like, the music doesn't enhance him, he doesn't enhance the music, so those songs just aren't good to me. And then Kyrie is another one where very basic production. He's actually rapping on here, but it still sounds very stale, boring. So this thing is a mixed bag, though I do kind of see potential in this guy, and I do like his energy. Like, when he is on his weirder, more hype, eccentric moments, he kind of gives me little flares of an Old Dirty Bastard or an A$AP Ferg, like, not in the sound, not in the quality, but just more in terms of the energy he kind of gives off. So I see potential in this guy, but overall, this first project isn't really it, if you know what I'm saying. This ain't it, chief, ha ha ha, using some Twitter lingo on here. But yeah, basically, this is not the best project that I think this guy can do, and he has some good songs on here, but overall, it's not really worth your time in my opinion, so to me, it's a 5 out of 10. Next up is a project that I think is one of the most underrated of the year, and I want to immediately say, before even talking about it, if you haven't heard this, basically drop everything you're doing and go listen to it, is La Maison Noire / The Black House by Petite Noir. This is a guy who I first heard on Danny Brown's album Atrocity Exhibition on the song Rolling Stone, where he provides a great chorus. And I had never heard any of his solo material, but when he dropped the single for this Beach with Danny Brown, I checked it out. It was a great song, and so I went ahead and checked out the rest of this EP, and it's just 6 tracks long, but all 6 of them are fantastic. Like, I'm excited now to hear a full-length thing from this guy, and this is, I think, my favorite EP of the year so far. It starts off with Blame Fire, which has a really simple but soulful, infectious chorus that just takes over with the blame fire, blame fire, blame fire, blame fire, blame fire, blame fire, blame. And the entire thing, I kind of like that da 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 synth melody that kind of comes on through the choruses. I love this guy's voice. Again, it's another one like Yves Tumor that's very distinctive, not traditional in any type of way, but sounds fantastic. Has so much soul and gravitas to him. My daddy was a politician. The guy just sounds great on here. Blame Fire, super catchy opener. Beach is the song that features Danny Brown, and he does come through with a very sharp, clever verse. I mean, he's great on here, don't get me wrong. And I mean, it's what you expect from Danny Brown, a passionate, fiery verse. Like, this guy never slacks. I mean, he's my favorite rapper, maybe of all time, definitely at the moment. So, and he does this thing on here. I love it. But what impresses me is that he doesn't steal the show, and that's not a knock on Danny. That's just credit to Petite, that, you know, an artist that to me is as incredible as Danny Brown and steals the show a lot of the time. I mean, you look at DJ Shadow's EP last year, you look at, you know, Gorillaz, Humans. I mean, you look at a lot of things. He can steal the show if you're slacking on your own part. But Petite's absolutely not slacking. In fact, Danny may not even be my favorite part of the song. If this life is worth living, I hope you're staying by me. I mean, the chorus on here might even be my favorite part, but it has this really eerie kind of vocal sample in the production. It has a very, I'd say, existential kind of tone. It's a very reflective song, kind of sounds a bit epic at times. Great stuff, and Danny adds to it a lot, but Petite's carrying his own on here. And then the next song is Fight Fire with Fire, which again, kind of like Blame Fire, has a bit of a repetitive hook, but it's just so it's so energizing, like the pow 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 pow, like literally just the word pow being said bam 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 over and over. But you know, it kind of has the same effect that Kanye did on his Feel the Love with his crack-a-ta-ta boop 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 boop, like those crazy gun noises he was making on Feel the Love. Like I kind of get the same energized, like just, you know, taking over my body feeling when I hear those little pows from this guy. Just great stuff, just in terms of how expressive and wild it sounds. All over this EP is the thing I forgot to mention is I love the African influences, you know, with the percussion and just with the style overall. Really makes this thing have a very soulful, spiritual feel that, again, like I said, just the way it's performed so effectively just takes over your body and sounds amazing. Then you have the song Respect, which is, hey, you, look at me, please show me some R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Like, this whole thing is extremely catchy. You'll get these songs stuck in your head in no time, and they sound great too. And I love on Respect how it opens up, sounds like it's going to be super dark and ominous, and then kind of cuts to this cheery guitar and just sounds all light and fluffy and happy. I also love on the chorus of the songs how the drums kind of ratchet up and are super huge and bombastic once again, just filling you with so much energy. And I've been talking about that so much, but really when I'm listening to this EP for the entire 27-minute runtime, I just feel like I'm on top of the world, because it's that type of project that's just going to fill you with so much emotion and passion, and it's great stuff. And then there's the song, oh, damn, I forget the name, the one with Saul Williams, but Saul Williams' feature is really interesting. He has a really great poetic passage kind of comparing slaves to robots in a sense. Like, not saying that they are robots, but saying that the mindset people had towards slaves is the same mindset they have towards robots now. And it's really interesting, like actually some pretty powerful stuff done in a really clever way, as you would expect from Saul Williams. So I love that. And like I said, this entire EP, it's fantastic stuff. I've heard nobody but my man Ryan Leaf talking about this. And so if you missed his review, or if you didn't check it out after his review, make sure you get on this thing, because it is wonderful stuff. It's a real gem of a project. As I said, my favorite EP of the year so far, honestly. And I just think people need to check it out. I mean, some of these songs are probably going to make my year-end song list too. Like, this is just fantastic stuff. 9 out of 10 for me. Please give it a listen. Next up is Electric Messiah by High on Fire. And now, I have said before on this channel that metal music is not my forte, and I just mean in terms of reviewing, because I do love metal music. I love listening to it. I love to try it and stay on top of, you know, the best metal releases of each year. I like to get my fair share of the genre, but talking about it, reviewing it, I suck at it, and it's something that I'd definitely love to get better at. I'd love to cover more metal releases. You know, when Leviathan puts out their next album, I'd love to cover it, because their last album, Scar-Sighted, is probably one of my favorite records of the decade. And, you know, I actually feel like I might be better at that, because I feel like atmospheric metal, that I'd actually might be better at it, but I digress. All I'm saying is that, you know, you're not going to get much substance out of me reviewing metal music, but of course, I do like to talk about everything that I listen to in some capacity, and High on Fire are a group who are just super consistent ever since the start of their career. Like, the worst they're going to put out is an album that is enjoyable. They may not always be pushing the boundary or doing anything too super original or unique, but they're always executing their sound basically, you know, really good, really well. They do what they do really well. This album is produced by Kurt Ballou. It's the third album they have produced by him. And whenever I see a record produced by Kurt Ballou, I know that it's going to be good, because this guy is one of the best producers working in metal today. I mean, he's given us a lot of great work. If you look up his production discography, it's super impressive. And this is another hit in his catalog. I will say, like, there's nothing going on here that you haven't heard before. I mean, this is very standard sludge metal, but it's performed at such a high level that I still really enjoy it. And it's definitely, I don't know if it's going to be a highlight from this year. If it makes my year-end list, it'll be lower at the bottom. But, you know, it's a record that I'm not mad I listened to, and I have had some fun with it. The drums on here are one of the best parts about it. They are just so fantastic all the way through, especially on the second track. What is it called? House of the Ziggurat or something like that, or something of the Secret of the Ziggurat and then House of the something, I don't know, a weird title. But the drums and guitar riffs all across that song, it's like 9 minutes, but it's just 9 minutes full of some of the catchiest guitar riffs I've heard all year, and again, some of the best drumming I've heard all year. I love the breakneck pace of a lot of these songs, like Freebooter and the title track on here. I mean, the whole thing has a very high tempo, but sometimes, like on those songs, like especially the title track, it's just like a high tempo that you really get into too. Like I can't listen to that title track without trying to play along to the drums while I'm listening to it. And yeah, I'm sorry that I can't really give you more than this. I mean, like I said, it is pretty much the same thing all the way through. I will say I wish that a few minutes were shaved off of this. Honestly, you could probably cut the whole last song and maybe like one in the middle, and I wouldn't really care because, you know, in the middle and that last song, I just don't really have that interest in because it's just sounds that we've heard recycled over and over this whole project. They do a little bit to try and diversify it. I mean, you get that part at the beginning of, what's the name of the song? I think it's track 5, but it's the 10-minute one, and you get these more twangy, almost like southern rock influenced, just outlaw sounding guitars that kind of just echo out in the beginning and then build up to the more typical sludge metal part. That part was kind of cool, but overall, like, it's just really good sludge metal, and that's about as much as you're going to get from me on the matter. So it's a 7 out of 10. It's a really solid record. If you haven't found any good metal music lately, I definitely suggest listening to it. I mean, again, this band is just super consistent. And yeah, really good record right here. And I'm sorry that I'm not better at reviewing metal music, and I'll try to get better. Up next, we have the newest album, or EP, I should say, from Young Thug. Actually, you know what? Scratch this. I meant to do this during the Zilla Kami review. I wanted to also talk about his EP, Be Patient, that came out. One thing I was going to say about the Zilla Kami project is that I thought it could have a bit more creativity or diversity. The whole thing maintained a pretty uniform sound. There were songs like Lamborghini, Getaway, Snow on the Bluff, and Aw Shit that definitely did try to have a different vibe. But overall, like, the entire thing was pretty similar in style, which I didn't mind for one project. But if they keep doing that in the future, it's going to get boring. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. They had an EP that came out before the project called Be Patient with 3 songs that I felt were actually really different from everything they had done to that point and everything they did since on that City Morgue tape. And it's one of my favorite EPs of the year. I mean, the thing about it is that you have them using these samples that really don't feel like they should work well with their music at all. I mean, on Train Spotting and Nitro Cell, like, the samples on those sound more like samples you'd hear in an MF Doom beat than on these, like, crazy, wild bangers that they're putting out. And it creates this really weird juxtaposition, and it just feels a lot more creative and fresh for them. Like, even though I do like their typical style, like, this feels even more innovative. Like, I wish we could get more stuff like that from them, and I'm hoping in the future they do stuff like that, because songs like Train Spotting and Nitro Cell, as I said, sound so cool. And then Drag Me to Hell maybe sounds a bit more traditional for them, but it also sounds a lot more creepy and hellish and than usual, and like a little more reserved while sounding that way. That piano line that's sampled, it just sounds like something you'd hear if you walked into Dracula's mansion or something. It's just so spooky. And Zilla's singing on the chorus, like, is actually more traditional, non-gruff singing, and I don't know if it's going to work for everyone, but for me, when I hear it, it just sounds so haunting and eerie in a really fantastic way that makes me love that song a lot. But I digress. Just wanted to get that EP out of the way too, because like I said, I just like to talk about everything that I've heard in a given year, and I've heard that. Meant to bring it up back then, but for me, that EP is an 8 out of 10. And before I talk about this Young Thug EP, I'll talk about that Young Thug compilation album he put out, Slime Language, where it was basically, like I said, it was more of a compilation project than an actual album of his, and it was, I guess, him trying to showcase his label mates, and it kind of fell flat. And the reason is because a lot of his label mates kind of suck, and if they don't suck, they're just boring. And there's a few good ones. I mean, you know, Lil Uzi Vert, I don't know if he's a label mate or if he just made a song with him, but the song with Lil Uzi was pretty cool. Gunna, I like some of his appearances on here, even though, like I said, mentioned in the Gunna review, he can get a bit boring, but I mean, he was good on the songs he was on here. And then his fiance Carly on You Ain't Slime Enough had a really good chorus, but that's honestly about it as far as features go. I didn't think the rest of the features really did anything good on here, and in fact, the 2 best songs are the ones where it's just Young Thug, Gain Clout, and Tsunami. Tsunami, which is like, kind of sounds like something that could have been on Jeffrey, a really tropical, bouncy vibe. Young Thug with a really eccentric, wild, catchy flow. And then Gain Clout, where he has this really low-key, kind of sinister, but really rapid flow that's actually showcases how he's actually an impressive technical rapper too, which is something I feel people overlook with him a lot. But yeah, I like the tone of that song. I like his rapping on there. And those are really the only 2 songs that I think I'd return to. voluntarily. Like, a lot of this thing I don't even think is bad, and I would listen to it. Like, the beats are decent, Young Thug is good on all of them, and then the features, like, they're not horrible, but they're just really painfully boring. And so a lot of this project fell just really flat for me. And, you know, I also like the song Audemars, though, and especially the way it comes in with the skr, 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 skr. Like, I'm not doing it justice, but the way Young Thug comes in with those skr ad-libs, it's hilarious, but also weirdly exciting at the same time, and just pretty eccentric, too. Like that moment, but, that's about it as far as that one goes. It's a very 5 out of 10 project. Like, it's very, very middle of the road, but thankfully, he didn't wait long to give us his On the Run EP, where he just made up for that, and that's what you love. When an artist puts out a mediocre project like that, it's nice when they come back right away to show you, wait, I'm not bad, I'm still good. And I do like how, at least his bad project was the compilation one, so it kind of, you know, it's not as big of a stain on his discography. It's more like, oh, he just threw out that compilation project one time that we can forget about. Let's look at his main work. Oh, it's all still really good. Because, you know, being the big Young Thug fan I am, I really actually think that most his solo mixtapes and albums are great. And actually, now that I think about it, ever since the Tour Part 1, there's no album of his that I would give, or mixtape that I would give less than a 6, except for probably Slime Language. So again, it's nice to get On the Run too, to show me that Slime Language isn't an indication of the future for him. The title track On the Run has a really fun flute sample to go along with its kind of what I was describing with Tsunami, really fun, bouncy, almost tropical sounding instrumental that, you know, a lot of artists try these out, and Young Thug, I think, often does them the best with songs like I Know There's Gonna Be Good Times, Wyclef Jean, Kanye West. I think, like, out of all the rappers who try to do these tropical styles, it often comes off corny, but when Young Thug does it, it sounds a lot more authentic, and just, it doesn't sound as weak and lazy and kind of sleepy. He kind of has a bit of oomph in his instrumentals that he chooses. I don't know how to describe it, but he always pulls them off a lot better than others, in my opinion. I don't like, however, how they added Offset to this song. That actually, to like his verse on here, it just kind of is boring. As boring as I was describing that, you know, they're rapping during the Quavo section. And I don't know if you guys noticed, because he actually only did this recently, but he did add Offset to this first song, which weakens it, honestly. It makes it worse than it was when it was just Young Thug. So that's a shame, and actually does take the EP down a peg. I can't pretend it doesn't, but, you know, the rest of the song's still good, and I still like the song overall. I just wish I could listen to it without Offset on it, if I'm being honest. Then there's Icy, which has a really cool synth line playing throughout the entire thing, and it's just really fun, bouncy, playful, has almost a cool texture to it too, a little bit rough and yet still sweet at the same time. And he has a cool flow on this thing to match up the little playful rhythm you got going on there, because like I like how when the verses starts, it kind of strips back a bit, and it's a little bit bouncy and just a little bit playful, as I was saying. So that's a really cool song. But where things really get going, like I like all 6 songs on here, but the stretch from Climax to Sin, wow, what a stretch. The 2 songs, okay, not a stretch. I was going to say from Climax, Sin to High, but then I was like, wait, actually Real in My Veins is in between Sin and High, so that's not a stretch. But the 3, Climax, what I'm trying to say is that Climax, Sin, and High are like the 3 main songs on here that are fantastic, and then the other 3 are really good, trust me, like there's still some really prime Thugger songs, but the 3 that I just mentioned are like top tier Thugger songs. Climax finds him doing something that might remind you a bit of Beautiful Thugger Girls, because it's very guitar based. It's actually more of a ballad sounding thing, though it doesn't exactly sound like anything that was on Beautiful Thugger Girls, because it doesn't feel as country or folk influenced. It feels a bit more like R&B influenced in terms of its overall sound, even though like it sounds like an R&B influenced guitar. I mean, when R&B singers like D'Angelo go ahead and use a guitar, this is more what it sounds like to me. And but this song, like, I don't even know what the lyrics are saying, honestly. Like, I don't sit down and analyze the lyrics when I listen to this song, but Young Thug sounds so impassioned and vulnerable on here that, like, this feels like a legit emotional moment. Like, this is a legitimately emotionally resonant song to me. Like, it makes me feel a lot when I listen to it, and just based on how Young Thug's vocal performance is. I love his vocal performance on here. You say no interest, said you need a better climax, I said he swag now, believe it's like a shot to the back of the mouth, so you better go and leave like it's nothing. I fucking love his chorus and just his overall vocal performance on here. And even Six Lack or Black or whatever, who I'm usually not a fan of, he sounds really good on here, and I appreciated his feature a lot. Then there's Sin with Jaden Smith, which features a classic sounding Young Thug beat from London on the track. Like, this really sounds like something that he could have put out back in the Barter 6 era, which, you know, I love all Thug, believe me, but Barter 6 and Slime Season might be his prime era, and this kind of feels like a callback to that. And I just love the really, you know, typical London on a track sounding piano, but like the tone that he gets with his melody always sounds fantastic. And he just has a really great ear for melody overall. London on the track as a producer. And I love the beat he has here, and Jaden Smith and Young Thug both sound fantastic on here. And I actually love how Jaden sounds more expressive than usual. Like, usually Jaden will hop on a song like Ghost and he'll be super monotone, but here he's actually doing these kind of weird vocal inflections, and he sounds really cool. And then Thug, on the other hand, who you're used to doing that, kind of hits this more reserved, kind of sinister, not sinister, but kind of just a grimy, gangster-sounding note. And he sounds really cool doing that too on this kind of like more low-key, reserved banger of a song. And I also love on here where has that line where he's like, "You don't respect women, just shut the fuck up." Because Young Thug has always been a guy who honestly has some pretty progressive bars at times, and that's one reason why we stand him over in this house. Because, I mean, he's telling you, he's like, "You don't respect women, just shut the fuck up." He'll slap you in the face. It's like, you know, him and Trouble literally made a song, Thief in the Night. Like, it's like an anti-rape anthem. Like, I love when this guy, Young Thug, just throws out lines like this, and he's like, you know, "Fuck you, you don't respect women." You're like, "Fuck you if you don't, you know, if you know, you try to sexually assault women." Like, throw bars. I love when rappers like this will just, especially in the lane he's in, where people are often really misogynistic, just throw out these, like, you know, pro-women lines. And, yeah, it adds to his character overall. It's not just, like, kind of a meme moment. I genuinely appreciate him doing it. You go, Young Thug. There's a reason why I love you so much, not just because of your music, but just, yeah, Young Thug, you're awesome. And then there's Real in My Veins, a solid song. Really don't have that much to say about it, honestly. I don't know why I even just mentioned it. What I really want to get to is I'm a Rocket Man, High, featuring Elton John. Sure, folks, I guess we were all a bit disappointed when we saw that, yes, it's just an Elton John sample. It's not a new Elton John feature. But, I mean, I guess it is still really cool what he did with Elton John's famous song, Rocket Man. Because what he did is he stretched out those vocals, and I'm gonna be high, and he just like stretched them out in this way that's actually really cool. It's one of the most creative samples I've heard all year, and I mean, that's not something I would expect from a Young Thug song. In fact, you know, Young Thug really doesn't even use samples that much in his music, but it was really, really cool to hear him use this sample in a way that was as creative as it was. And it's a super catchy song. Young Thug sounds fantastic over this piano-led instrumental. The chorus and the way Young Thug interpolates it is just so cool. And yeah, I'm going a bit bananas here, folks. Been recording for hours, but I just want to say, yeah, Young Thug did a fantastic job on this EP. Gave us some really prime songs. And yeah, the three best would, of course, be Climax, Sin, and High, even though I like the rest. But yeah, really great EP. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. Honestly, I was going to give it an 8.5 before I went back to it and realized Offset was added, so fuck you, Offset, for being added. But yeah, other than that, 8 out of 10, one of the best EPs of the year as well. I'm going nuts. Let's finish this thing off. We are going to go with 15 by Bhad Bhabie. Okay, now this is a project that I was excited for. Because Gucci flip-flops, fuck it, hit your bitch in my socks. This a big watch, diamonds dripping off of the clap. Pull the 6 out, wintertime, dropping the top. Give it to that pussy ass, turn that bit up a notch. Okay, Bhad Bhabie is my fucking main bitch. Okay, we be cruising around the city together and just fucking shit up. But anyways, in all seriousness, it's kind of funny to me that we have this little 15-year-old white girl making fucking trap gangster rap music talking about, "I'ma beat your ass, bitch." I find it hilarious, okay? Like, and if we're just being like, take all that out of it. For as far as trap music goes, this is actually fine. Like, she can rap on beat. She actually has a pretty commanding presence and a decent voice for rapping. And you know, she occasionally, she doesn't write her own raps, but she actually occasionally has some lines that are like half decent when she says like, "Running through these checks like the ones on my shoes." Like, that's actually a half clever line. And I know she didn't write it, but it's still entertaining to hear. So yeah, on that level, like, this is a pretty average trap album. But then when we add the ironic factor in, the ironic factor, the enjoyment is high. You know, when I'm hanging out with my friends, we can get down to some young and bad, all my bitches young and bad. Young and bad, all my bitches young and bad. Okay? You know? Pull up to that wraith and make these bitches pledge allegiance. So much as inside my name, my channel turn into a freezer. Kind of the racks. For the sack. Young and bad, all my bitches young. Anyways, I'm going nuts and nuts and nuts. All I'm saying is that it's hilarious, the entire situation around this music to me, and it cranks up the ironic factor, which allows me to have a lot of fun with some of these songs, mainly Juice, Geeked, Young and Bad, Gucci Flip Flops, and Hi Bitch. Those are the ones that I probably had the most fun with, and the rest on here are like famous, you know, not bad. There are some songs that like Clout Drop, the intro and outro, there's more in here, just not coming to No Love, that even on an ironic level, don't get that much enjoyment out of. Affiliated, like, I'm not getting much enjoyment out of them just because they're kind of bland overall. But as I said, ironically, hell of a lot of fun to have with my girl Danielle fucking up the shits. And yeah. So it's funny, definitely fun. I'm glad this exists, even if I'll probably never return to it, other than a couple songs when me and my girls are riding around the city just blaring some Young and Bad. You know how it goes. Fucking shit up. Yeah. Me, Elizabeth, Mona, Elisha, we riding around the city blasting some Young and Bad on my bitches Young and Bad, because that's real ass music. And yeah, that's all I have to say. This is a 5 out of 10 or a 7.5 out of 15. Get it? Ha ha ha, because the album or mixtape is called 15. And boom, those are all the projects I'm reviewing. Let's close this up before my phone dies. Yeah. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.